Kevin Stefanski, Joel Bitonio, talked about Bitonio's decision to keep playing this year instead of retiring.
Yeah, very relieved. Obviously, I was hopeful that Joel would be back. He's been here with me every step of the way. He's been a huge part of what we do on the football field. He's a huge part of who we are off the field. I think, it was no small thing when we put that golf simulator in Berea. I think that certainly maybe tipped the scales in our favor. But he's a pro's pro. I think he's a future Hall of Famer, so I'm thrilled he's back.
I kind of sat at home for a month or two and was in and around and talked to my wife, and we just went through the process, and I was like, I could still play football at a high level. I still want to play football. And, after the discussions with Coach Stefanski and Andrew Berry, and they don't tell you who they're drafting or anything, but, just of offense we were going to run, who we're going to, try and bring in at quarterback. Offensive line coach, Coach Bloom was a big part of it. He was just, we went to dinner a couple times and just talked on his philosophies. All those things played in, but at the end of the day, I was like, I'm not ready to be done. I want to play more, and I want to play in Cleveland, and that was kind of my mindset.
And really, when you look at it, Jeff, the way he played towards the end of last season was pretty good.
Oh, there's no question about it. And, I think that's one of the things, when you reach a certain age, because, and we're going to probably see that a lot with Flacco here once we get to camp. You can't push guys of a certain age and so hard or expect them to be able to go, all in, all out every single day. And, as the season was, coming to its pass, Joel was, healthier, felt better, certainly performing better. But, for some of these guys, this is all they've ever known, whether it was 7, 8 years old. All they've ever known is, come, July, it's, all right, let's go. Football season's about to begin. It's certainly a difficult decision. Joel's got a family. At points, I'm sure there's, questions of, do we maybe try to do this somewhere else? But for a guy like Joel, that means uprooting your kids, uprooting your what, a lot to it. And, look, this is all, Joel has ever known in his time here in the NFL. And, he's been a guy that's always carried, himself within this organization. And he's always felt like he plays for one of the better organizations in the entire NFL and represents this team as such. And again, who wants to go out on what the Browns went out on last year? That's got to also be another one. Like, this is what I'm walking away from. And, he knows his body better than anybody else. So if he thinks he still has something in it, he probably is right. Who are we to, judge that? And, it's also the camaraderie thing. He's played with Posick. He's played with Wyatt Teller for a while. He's played now with Jack Conklin for a while. Nobody wants to be the first, basically to, say, hey, I'm breaking up the band, so to speak. And so, Joel's always been a class act. Nobody would have thought any less if he said, what, this is it. I've reached my time and it's time to go. But, him coming back certainly, and I think gives a lot of, people who thought, maybe they weren't going to be that good this year again anyway. Hey, you know what? If Joel thought it was going to be that bad, maybe that would have been yet another reason that Joel decided to go. But in the end, obviously, as we all know, he decided to stick around.